Hello everybody, Thetymix here, excited to start a brand new series. This is AI War Fleet Command, the 2009 game by Arson Games, and several expansions, of course. Just a quick note, you can see the backstory and then later the credits scrolling along the left side. But this is a really revolutionary and unique sort of RTS. And so why am I doing this and why am I doing it now? The sequel is coming out in early access, and I think there's still some things that really haven't been explored much with this game. I find it to be fascinating and interesting and all of those things, and also frustrating. That's part of the joy. It can get very complex, and there's really only one series out there that I've seen that does a good job of sort of an introductory level tactics, explanation how to start with sort of a beginning player, and that's what I'm going to be doing to start with. It's going to be a beginner walkthrough, and then we'll progress through higher difficulties until I sort of reach my limit. Now, the tutorials that are out there, sort of, there's different kinds of games. There's ones where people are trying to beat it on the highest difficulty, and the way this game was designed, winning on the highest difficulty is actually considered a bug. And there's very few people who can do it consistently. And I do mean very few. Now, there's sort of things like, let's all watch the AI beat up on us type of thing. Then there's some that are around the standard difficulty, which is sort of a good place when you haven't played the game a whole lot, but, they don't really push their way up higher. And then there's, For Beginners tutorial that I mentioned, which really on that one is not, in my humble opinion, although it's done extremely well, it's not really the best setup for beginner. It throws too much at you. I'm going to strip things way back here for this and just lay out the basic structure. I'm also going to keep these videos sort of bite-size. I'm planning on somewhere around 20 minutes each and do more regular uploads of it so that it's sort of a more manageable length. Okay, so what are we talking about when we're talking about playing a game of AI War? Well, we want to start with host new campaign. There's other stuff around here, like you can do your high scores. I don't have any on here. I created a fresh profile for this series. You can load, and there's various settings. I've already set those where I want them to be. So we'll take a look at like the achievements at another time. We'll get through some of these. You can see, I mean, there's a ridiculous amount of them. 322 different achievements. So we'll gradually get through those as we proceed. Start off with a new game. And the first thing I want to do is just get rid of all the expansions down here, because we're going to want to play the standard vanilla version. And we're just going to sort of start with the basic and build things up, because there is so much complexity that you can get into in this game. Now over here we've got, there is only the role of normal and then helper. It's a spectator type of game. A lot of this is for multiplayer. This has, the multiplayer lobby setup. But we're just going to be doing the normal thing. We're going to do blue for our color. We can boost or reduce our resources. Now you can see from the tooltip here, that changes your production, resource and ship production for both. Put them on the player, or we can put them on the AI. We're not going to bother with that. Then we're going to look down here at the AI difficulties. Now, a lot of people, when they're first starting out, are like, well, I want to add more AIs, or I want to have less AIs. You can't do that. For specific reasons that we'll get to, AI War has 2 and only 2 AI enemies for any game. And the difficulty is set right here. You can see there's all kinds of levels from 10 Doom all the way down to 1 Sandbox. And you can see it describes some of this on the tooltip. The recommended beginner game is level 6. We're actually going to go a little bit lower than that, level 5. And the AI is intentionally stupid. It's important to remember, the AI is intentionally stupid to some degree. Anywhere below 7. 7 is like the standard when it's got, there isn't any thing that it says, well, we're not going to do that because that's too advanced for a novice player. It'd be too challenging for them to deal with, etc. So between 5 and 7 is when most of those AI algorithms get unlocked, and then above 7 or below 5, you're talking mostly about economics. You know, more or less ships coming after you and attacking you. So we're going to start on 5. And then after this game, which again is just going to basically be a walkthrough, the next we'll go to 7, which is the standard level, and proceed from there. So we can pick different AI types. And we're going to go with the turtle. They heavily defend their planets, but they don't attack us as much. And then the tank, which is sort of an opposite. They tend to send heavier attacks against the players and don't defend as well. And those are just a couple good, beginning setups. So each AI not only has a difficulty, but it has a personality that tweaks sort of how it behaves. Okay? So we want to set that up first. So we've turned off the expansions. We've set up our difficulty how we want them, and we've got the colors and everything. We can change the colors for the enemies if we feel like. I don't see a reason to do that, but we're gonna know that blue is us and yellow and green are the AIs. Okay, so over here, we're not going to use any of the setup script, but we can use those, beginner game or random factions or whatever. The planet numbers. Now we're going to go with the standard amount here, which is 80. And you might think, well, why don't we go with a really small one? Well, actually, the really small ones are really difficult. Because in order to defeat the AIs, you need a certain amount of territory. So it can be hard to get that territory in a smaller, more condensed map. So 80 is actually the standard amount that's recommended. It can go up to 120 or all the way down to 10. We're going to stick with that. The map style. There are a lot more of these. In many of these options, there's a lot more stuff unlocked in the expansions. We're just taking the basic version here. We're going to switch to simple. And that just basically means the connections between the planets aren't as complex. It's easier to see them. And Conquest is the only type of game we have available. So let's just click a new seed. You only see these symbols up here. And that's because of, I'm going to switch over here and unlock this. We need to have Show Unexplored Planets on. There we go. So you can turn this off. This just shows connections between the various planets. Now, these up here, it's not initially obvious, but which planet you pick, and we'll get to this, but you can pick which, you get one bonus ship type at the start of each game. You can pick which one it is. And then what about this ×4, ×3, etc.? Well, that's how many wormholes or how many systems your starting system connects to. And you usually want a decent amount, but not too many. So I could pick any of these systems. I can't pick to start anywhere else. These are the only places that we can pick to begin. So while we're here, there's some other things that we want to look at. We're not going to enable the cheats. The combat style is recommended to be on the slower epic deal. Half movement speed, half firing speed, half damage. And it just sort of slows the game down. It does tend to be pretty frantic. And while we're getting used to things, it's good to have that on, because if something important is under attack, you have more time to react to, as opposed to being blown up and then you're like, oh, whoops. So we're going to go with that. We're going to go with the normal unit caps. We can make them very low or high, and this does impact how fast the game will run. But we're going to stick with the normal amount for that. And then the performance profile based on your computer, I'm going to stick it, at the top at insane. And then if I start getting any slowdowns at all, obviously I'll, knock it down. But better performance, better. And then Fog of War. What can you see on the enemy planet? Can you just see everything? Normal Fog of War, you've got to have ships at a planet to see the enemy ships there. And you got to scout them to see who owns them. That's the standard setting. That's what we'll be using. Then we'll back up here a bit to the ship's control. Now we're going to back this off. First of all, we got simple, normal, and complex. And basically simple, there are a few starting ship types that every game has, and then it says there's only a handful here, maybe 10 or 12, that are added if you use that. If you use normal, most of them will be used, but you can see there's a few special ones there that won't be, or complex is everything. And we'll definitely up this later, but right now we're going to go with simple. We're also going to turn off a few of these. Now, cloaking is basically any ship that has a cloak, and there's many of them that can, but it also includes mines and scouts, and scouts are really important. So we don't want to turn that off. I mean, we could, but I want to show all the basic elements of the game, and that's not one of them. Now, heavy defense, and the two examples they use here are force fields and fortresses. Fortresses can make things difficult on us, but we're definitely going to want force fields. Again, that's a key, pretty basic element of the game, so we're going to leave those on. Starships are pretty basic. We want those on. Mines are as well. That one I thought about toggling off. I don't want to get rid of it though. Teleporting, just moving place to place instantly. And parasites, ships that can capture other ships. We're going to get rid of those two elements for now. Tractor beams are an important and fairly basic defensive thing, as are turrets. Really important. Game would be totally different without turrets. And core shield generators. I'll show why a little bit later once we get into the game. But those are really good to have on for your first game, so that you can see, it basically guides you through like which planets are important for you to think about capturing, helps you through. Initially, players will sometimes have trouble not really knowing what to do in the mid-game. And the core shield generators handle all of that. They give you sort of guideposts to follow. And these down here are added by some of the expansions, so I didn't even need to turn them off, but I did. They're special types of ships that we will deal with at a later time. We already went through the game options. AI options. Now, there are various minor factions you can add, and then you can also change, like you see it says 4 out of 10. You can go up or down by right or left clicking. Left clicking is up, right clicking is down, and you can decrease or increase the intensity of those factions in the game. We're going to leave all of those totally off. We've got AI modifiers that make things stronger or weaker. We're going to just ignore all of those, and we're going to leave everything at the default. I'm just trying to make things as simple as possible. And auto AI progress. You can increase that over time, sort of continue the idea that there's time pressure on you. And we're going to leave that off. And then different AI plots that they can have. We'll go through these in another game. And that we are going to leave off as well. So again, we'll revisit this stuff later. But let's decide where we're going to start. And generally 3 to 4 is a good amount of wormholes. You want a place that's defensible, but that has places that you can explore. So I'm going to choose right here, Darkvin. And then I can either, I can choose by which ship is there, or I can simply, see I can't do anything there, but I can right click, and now I can pick any ship. And as it is, I'm going to choose the Raptor. Now if we look at this one that has the Raptor, you can see it highlights what it does down there at the lower left. And if you look at the blue at the very bottom, blazing fast, cloaked fighter, good against lightweight ships, and excellent for kiting. So it's got some really nice advantages. So that's why I'm gonna, select that one first. But I like the position of this system, Darkvin. So I'm gonna go with Raptor. And I also, I can click on this and select it. Or I could just start the game without even clicking on that, and it would give me something random. And we'll look at that in the future, but right now let's just get going with our system right there. And rule number 1 is pause. Always pause at the start. Always pause if you're not basically waiting for something to build or moving your ships around or whatever. And so now we're into the Darkvin system. You see I paused a little bit too quickly. We can't quite see the resources up here. But this will be our starting point. And next time I will get into what we want to do first. What are all these things? What do they do? What is this whole AI war thing all about? Until then, thanks for watching. See you soon as AI War Fleet Command rolls on.